Hello everyone, how are you? Let me introduce myself. My name is Astrianti from class 2B Nursing, Poltekkes Kemenkes Tasikmalaya, Cirebon region. Today, I want to presentation journal article. Now, I want to share screen PowerPoint. Okay, today I want presentation journal article by title Cardiovascular Disease Risk in HIV Positive Population in Indonesia, written by Ismail Fahmi Sriona. Next. Okay, the discussion time is number 1, background on introduction, 2, method, 3, result, 4, discussion, and 5, conclusion. The first, background. Cardiovascular disease, especially coronary heart disease, in a concern for HIV patients since the introduction of antiretroviral therapy as HIV therapy. It can cause a decrease in morbidity and mortality in HIV patients. But on the other hand, some studies report that the use of art is suspect of increasing the rise of cardiovascular disease. Also, chronic infection and inflammatory mechanisms have a significant role in the enrollment of cardiovascular disorder in HIV patients. A study conducts the proportion of the rise of cardiovascular disease in HIV patients. The result of the study conducted in 341 HIV patients in Brazil start that 46 of HIV patients were at risk of developing heart disease. Another study conducted in Brazil aimed at predicting the rise of heart disease in HIV patients using the fragmile cardiovascular risk score found that 30 of HIV patients were at risk of CID and 55 were at risk of developing hypertension. Another similar study was carried out in India where the result of the study explained that as many as of HIV patients were at risk of developing coronary artery disease. Within 5 years after being exposed to HIV, in addition to the inflammatory response and use of art, smoking behavior is also a factor that contributes to the rise of heart disease in HIV patients. Research show that around 70% of HIV patients are smokers, where smoking is a traditional factor for the rise of heart. Next, HIV incidence in increasing in the low middle country for Indonesia and LMEC. The relief of newly infected HIV in 2007 ranged for 41,432,000 to end in 1 year of 2016. Furthermore, the need for antiretroviral therapy in Indonesia is expected in increase for approximately 30,000 patients in 2008 to almost 87,000 patients in 2014, which shows an incident study on the prevalence of cardiovascular disease in HIV patients in Indonesia are still limited. This literature review aims to identify cardiovascular disease rise and factor rate in HIV patient population in Indonesia. Okay, next method. The research method is a literature review to collect data. The author used several databases to search for literature sources to be reviewed, namely public Cochrane Library Observers on Google Scholar, the inclusion criteria including 1. An article discussing cardiovascular disease in HIV patients, and 2. English head Indonesia language article. Published article are written from January 2009 to September 2008. The author also used several search keywords: antiretroviral therapy, cardiovascular disease, coronary artery disease, HIV. The article chosen was a quantitative study relating to cardiovascular disease in HIV patients. The research method used is a systematic review, meta-analysis, RCT, cohort, case control, case study, cross-sectional study. Next, results. 5 journal articles were found that discuss the cardiovascular disorder risk among HIV patients in Indonesian specifically. The research method used in the finding of the journal in 3 articles of cross-section study, 1 article of comprehensive survey, and 1 article of a cohort study. The journal article report on cardiovascular disease rise in HIV positive population in Indonesia. Cardiovascular disease rate in HIV patient, number 1, structure pneumatic and abnormal heart function. People with HIV positive have a rise for structural pneumatic. 2, inflammatory response and coronary artery pneumatic pathology. HIV cause an abnormal inflammatory response by inviting dendritic myocardium, and endothelial cells, causing chronic inflammation by stimulating the production of TNF-alpha, interleukin 1 and 6, and other inflammatory cytokine proteins that cause myocardial injury, causing fibrosis of the mitochondrium. Next, factor cardiovascular disease rise in HIV patient population in Indonesia. Number 1, smoking. Is thought to be a risk factor for heart disease in HIV patient. 2, intraviral therapy. Smoking plays a role in the rise of the incidence of coronary heart disease HIV patient population. At cohort study aimed at predicting the rise of coronary heart disease in smoking HIV patient. Next, discussion. Left ventricular hypertrophy is a predictor of all death in the general population, also of the incidence of cardiovascular disease, where this rise in people infected with HIV. The result of a study conducted by Hidayat al. 2018 and patient with HIV/AIDS Wahidin Sudirohusudo Hospital, Makassar, South Sulawesi, Indonesia, showed that patients with 200 had a higher rise of diastolic dysfunction and mid-to heart structural, including left ventricular abnormalities, max index. This study is similar to the study conducted by Swart et al. 2012 in Botswana, Africa. In the search, Swart et al. explained that HIV/AIDS patients in Botswana experienced cardiovascular disease sort as abnormal structure heart cardiomyopathy and heart infection, pericarditis. In addition to the mechanism of infection that cause cardiac structural abnormalities, art is also associated with cardiac structural abnormalities in HIV patients. The result of a prize study 2017 at the Cipto Mangunkusumo Hospital in Jakarta, Indonesia, called that HIV patients taking antiretroviral therapy were at risk of experiencing heart structure damage after a year of news similar to the study conducted by Pombo et always found that after a year of art news, HIV patient experienced left ventricular hypertrophy. Next, research conducts in Germany also conclude the same result where HIV patient would take antiretroviral therapy at high risk of change in the left ventricular. Okay, next, conclusion. HIV is a significant health problem in the world. HIV patients have a high risk of developing cardiovascular disease. HIV positive population in Indonesia have the hands for structural heart damage, abnormal heart function, inflammatory heart response, and coronary after damage. Factor related cardiovascular disease rise in HIV positive population in Indonesia, the use of art and smoking behavior. This is a challenge for health workers, the government, and research to develop appropriate strategies and methods in reducing the cardiovascular disease rise in HIV patient population in Indonesia. Okay, the presentation is finished. I say thank you.